Discover the incredible twist, how a nurse's touching act exposed a mafia boss's hidden truth. Mia Thompson stood at the nurse's station, her eyes scanning the spreadsheets filled with patient names. The faint beeping of monitors and hushed conversations echoed around her, a comforting rhythm in the storm of her thoughts. Just days ago, the loss of her mother had felt like a tidal wave, sweeping through her life and leaving behind a heavy silence. Now, in an effort to fill that void, she poured every ounce of herself into her work at the local hospital. But as she took a breath, the weariness clawed at her chest. This day felt different. An impending dread shadowed her sense of duty. When the supervisor assigned her to Salvatore Sal Marino, Mia's heart clenched involuntarily. The name reverberated through the small-town air like a gavel striking a verdict. Sal was known to many as a figure intertwined with the Mafia, a man whose gaze sparked murmurs and glances of fear. Yet despite his dangerous reputation, her compassion as a nurse fought against her instinctual apprehension. As she approached his room, the weight of her emotions pressed down upon her, forming a swirl of obligation and unease. Her mind raced, a battle of values tearing her apart. Faced with a patient who symbolized everything her family had suffered, her father's wrongful downfall buried beneath the weight of Mafia deceit, Mia questioned her courage. Should she care for this man? Or would that mean betraying the memory of her father? Would her empathy only embolden the darkness he represented? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Over the next few days, Mia found herself drawn to Sal. His weary eyes held an unsettling depth. With every passing hour, the walls she had built around her heart weakened, and something akin to understanding flickered between them. Each time she tended to him, her profession intertwined with the ghosts of her past, mingling nursing care with the undercurrent of rage at what Sal had done. He was a paradox, vulnerable, yet with an aura of menace, battling illness, while exuding an unsettling aura that both scared and intrigued her. As Mia unveiled the complexities of his world through whispered conversations, seeds of empathy began to take root, but she couldn't shake away the ache of her father's unjust fate. The realization crashed over her like a rogue wave. Sal was more than just a patient. He was an embodiment of everything she had spent her life resisting. Caught between conflicting emotions, she realized the stakes had risen too high, tightening around her like a noose. Her hands trembled as she held his chart, heart pounding with the heavy burden of unresolved questions. Would exposing him bring justice, or simply perpetuate the cycle of pain? Mia knew she stood on the precipice of a choice, one that could shatter more than mere illusions. Obligation and morality clashed violently within her, making it almost impossible to breathe. Everything she valued was at risk, and yet, as she stared into the depths of Sal's haunting gaze, another truth stirred within her. Whatever path she chose, she would never be the same. As uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud, Mia felt a message vibrate against her. An anonymous threat, insistent and chilling, whispering of dangers untold. The truth was dangerous, and as the whispers grew louder, she had to wonder. How deep was she willing to go to seek justice and uncover the lies that entwined their fates? Mia's resolve wavered in the dim light of Sal's hospital room. The air hung thick with unspoken truths, the sterile scent of antiseptic unable to mask the tension swirling like a storm cloud. She paced the floor, her heart racing against the backdrop of beeping machines, wrestling with the paradox that was Sal Marino. Each gentle touch as she adjusted his IV brought fresh memories of her father's wrongful condemnation, reminding her that this wasn't just another patient. This was a lifeline tangled in a sea of moral ambiguity. How could she navigate these waters without drowning in sorrow and resentment? As the days unfolded, Mia began to recognize the depth of her emotional conflict. Sal's stories, tinted with regret and fragility, unveiled layers of vulnerability beneath his criminal exterior. These glimpses made it harder to maintain the distance she so desperately sought. He spoke of loyalty and betrayal, with a sincerity that shook her convictions. Her father's harrowing experiences loomed large, a specter haunting her thoughts, yet Sal's ghosts began to weave their own tale, one of shadows and lost chances. The whispers grew louder, no longer mere echoes in her mind. They became whispered commands that urged her toward a precipice. Was she meant to expose Sal's darkness, or confront her own fears? Each session, as they shared fragments of their lives, Mia realized how his pain mirrored her own. The battle between professional integrity and personal vendetta threatened to tear her apart. Was she using her role as a nurse to heal, or merely as a guise to scrutinize him, to settle an internal score long hidden beneath layers of grief? It was one late evening, as a pale moonlight spilled through the window, that Mia gathered the courage to confront Sal directly. His weary gaze met hers, and in that moment, she saw more than just the infamous Mafia boss. She saw a man desperate for redemption, for understanding. "Sal," she began, her voice steady against the tide of doubt. "Do you ever think about what you've done? About the lives caught in the crossfire of your decisions?" The room fell unnaturally still. Sal's eyes narrowed, a storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. "You play with fire, nurse," he replied, a hint of disdain lacing his words. "I don't expect you to understand. This isn't a fairy tale." But Mia wasn't deterred. "It doesn't have to be. We're both fighting demons, Sal. Is holding on to this anger worth it?" The vulnerability in her tone felt like a thin bridge stretching between them, daring him to cross. Sal looked away, his expression unreadable. A long silence enveloped them, thick with unspoken truths. The threat she'd received pulsed in her mind, a reminder of the dangerous world lurking just beyond the hospital walls. Yet here she stood, faced with an unexpected choice: extend compassion or retreat into the safety of her resentment. As the reality of her decision hung in the air, Mia felt a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. Perhaps understanding could be the antidote, a way to heal not just herself, but Sal as well. But as she prepared to delve deeper, ready to take that leap of faith, the door swung open violently, revealing a dark silhouette that sent a chill down her spine. "Where's Sal?" a gruff voice demanded, ominous and threatening. The moment stretched infinitely, pulling Mia into the whirlwind of chaos. She inhaled sharply, her heart crashing against her ribs as she realized that her journey into truth was about to spiral into a confrontation she could never have anticipated. How far would she go to uncover the truth now? Each choice bore consequences, and as fear painted her senses, Mia knew the next step she took could irrevocably change her destiny. The figure at the door loomed larger in Mia's vision, his presence flooding the room with a heavy dose of tension. The voice that had commanded entrance was accompanied by a glimmer of recognition. This was not just any thug. He carried the weight of Sal's world with him, and it threatened to spill over onto her. Instinctively, her body tensed, thoughts racing through her mind like wildfire. She had a decision to make: step back into the shadows or confront the intruder head-on. Each second felt like an eternity as she wavered, weighing her own safety against an unscripted script of justice she'd begun to write for herself. "Who are you?" she managed, surprising herself with the steadiness in her tone. The man's lips curled into a smirk, as if her challenge amused him. "I'm here for Sal, sweetheart. Just a friendly visit." His eyes darted to Sal, whose frailty seemed amplified under the harsh fluorescent lights, and Mia felt a surge of protectiveness rise within her. "You can't see him," she stated firmly, though the determination in her voice masked the fluttering panic in her stomach. "He's not well. Doesn't look like it's your decision to make." The man stepped closer, invading her space, forcing her to make a choice: to shield her patient or back down and risk everything she'd begun to stake her life upon. In the swirling storm of the moment, Mia remembered Sal's vulnerability and the flicker of truth she had glimpsed in his past. Her compassion was a weapon now, and she felt the heft of it in her heart. "You could walk away," she challenged, "and let him heal. Just because he's a criminal doesn't mean he doesn't deserve care." The smirk faded, replaced with a cold glare that promised retribution. "You're naive if you think you can just play nurse and pretend none of this matters. He's in deep, and you don't want to get caught up in that." Every word he spoke rang with the weight of caution, but it only fueled her resolve. She was not just a nurse. She was a daughter rising against the memories of her father's unjust fate. This wasn't only about Sal. It was about reclaiming her power, about wrestling with her own tangled emotions. "And you don't want to underestimate me." The word hung in the air, pulling them both into a tense silence, fraught with unspoken consequences. The intruder seemed to calculate her, reassessing the threat she posed, as if gauging whether this clean-cut nurse had anything more to deliver than reckless bravado. With a flash of insight, Mia recognized the struggle of her own past, reflected in the eyes of the intruder. He was a man molded by choices, much like Sal, and she found herself questioning if conviction was worth any cost. "You can leave now," she said, her voice unwavering, "or you can face the fallout of ever coming back here." The man paused, narrowing his eyes at her, skepticism mingling with a flicker of uncertainty. For a fraction of a second, Mia could see his struggle, and for a heartbeat, he looked like someone grappling with hidden demons of his own. But then he shook it off, turning on his heel, seething with a mix of frustration and anger before he stormed out. As the door slammed shut behind him, adrenaline pulsed through Mia's veins. She turned to Sal, whose gaze brimmed with a mixture of appreciation and concern. "What just happened?" he asked, his voice filled with a new timbre of respect. "I don't know," she admitted, her own heart still racing. In that one moment, she understood how dangerously close she had danced with the abyss. She had made her choice, to confront bravado against intimidation, risking everything for a belief. But how far would this conviction carry her when the stakes were raised? And as Sal looked at her, she could feel the weight of her fighting spirit begin to forge an unexpected bond between them. But looking toward the door, Mia knew that was only the beginning. Would this act of defiance lead to revelations about both themselves, or threaten everything Mia had started to build? Facing the truth, she wondered how far the shadows of their lives would stretch in pursuit of redemption. Mia's heartbeat reverberated in her ears as she struggled to regain her composure. The encounter left her oscillating between triumph and the unsettling realization that she was perched on an increasingly precarious tightrope. She needed clarity, not just for her own sanity but for Sal, who now looked at her as if he recognized her for the first time, the depths of her strength illuminating the room. "Why did you stand up to him like that?" Sal's voice broke through the fog of her thoughts, revealing layers of concern and admiration she hadn't expected. "He could have hurt you." The words stumbled out as she wrestled with her own motivations. "I couldn't let him intimidate me. I couldn't let him diminish what I'm trying to do here." But was it merely about preventing intimidation? Or was there more at stake? Sal's frail frame leaned back against the pillow, and Mia noted the pallor of his skin contrasting starkly with her resolve. The trust she had begun to foster with him felt more critical now than ever. "You've put yourself in danger for someone like me," he said. "Why?" Her resolve faltered momentarily, the weight of her father's legacy weighing heavily on her conscience. "Because everyone deserves a chance," she finally replied. "Even those who have made mistakes." Sal's eyes narrowed, glimmers of hope flickering behind the pain. "Is that what you think you're giving me? A chance?" Mia hesitated, realizing she was suddenly grappling with far more than the physical care Sal needed. "I want to help you heal, To find redemption, if that's something you believe in, she confessed, yet doubted whether Sal saw himself that way. I am no saint, Mia, he murmured, a trace of bitterness in his tone. You don't know the half of my past. Maybe not, she conceded, but I believe in healing. It's not just about injuries. It's about finding forgiveness within ourselves. The gravity of their exchange hung in the air, intertwining with an unspoken agreement. They both stood at a crossroads, facing their respective pasts, but uncertain about their shared future. Yet, amid this personal reckoning, another thread of determination unfurled within Mia. Her roundabout confrontation with the intruder had stirred something deeper. She needed to understand not only what drove individuals like him, but also find out in which shadows they operated, whether they were hiding from their own actions, or just the society that cast them out. A part of her, stronger than before, was itching to unearth these truths. Tell me more about your past, she said, taking a step closer to where Sal lay. What has led you here, and why should I trust you? He tilted his head, wary yet intrigued. You really want to delve into the darkness? Yes, she affirmed, fueled by the strength she had just discovered in herself. As their conversation deepened, Sal's guarded demeanor began to crack, exposing him in layers much like peeling an onion. Each revelation struck Mia with the force of a thunderclap, digging into the complexity of her own convictions and illuminating the murky waters of loyalty and betrayal. Was it possible that beneath all that he had done lay a man trapped in circumstances beyond his control? What if his redemption intertwined with her own? The notion sent shockwaves through her, igniting a passageway to new realizations. Yet she couldn't escape the feeling that rising to discover the truth would have consequences. Meanwhile, the door swung back open, and a shadow fell across the threshold. Mia's instincts shifted from the emotional to the defensive, awareness wrapping around her like a cloak. Guess who decided to return? The new figure's voice was low, taunting in its air of familiarity, an ox dragging a weight that threatened to crush their budding trust. Mia took a breath, feeling the sudden shift in energy. The stakes had just gotten higher. What truths awaited her in this darkened moment? And could her courage withstand the truth that awaited beyond the door? The figure stepped further into the room, revealing a man whose very presence seemed to darken the atmosphere. His smirk cut through Mia's resolve like a knife, reminding her that familiarity could be a double-edged sword. She instinctively tightened her grip around the chair, her mind racing to assess the danger he posed and the implications for Sal. "Less," Sal murmured, his voice a mix of defiance and fear, neither of which Mia could afford to yield to. "Thought I might find you here, partner. Looks like you've got quite the little protector, huh?" Les's eyes gleamed with a predatory delight as he motioned toward Mia. His tone dripped with mockery, but the way he scrutinized her made her skin crawl. "What do you want?" Sal snapped, his frail figure seemingly igniting with a flicker of anger. Lise chuckled, enjoying the tension that enveloped them. "Just came to remind you of your obligations. Letting the little nurse here play savior could get you both hurt." Mia's heart raced as she recognized the veiled threat in Les's words. This wasn't just a personal confrontation. It was a message. She felt the heat of righteous indignation spill over her fear, but she also sensed how precarious her position was, not just for herself and Sal, but for the fragile bond they were starting to form. "Get out," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The intensity of her gaze might have surprised even her. Was she daring to stand up to him? Could she really hold her ground against the darkness that surrounded Sal? Les raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Cute. You really think you can call the shots here? You're in over your head, nurse." Drawing on the courage she had discovered not long ago, Mia took a step forward, refusing to let intimidation break her. "You don't own him, and you don't get to dictate how he heals, or who's in his life." In that moment, she realized she was not just fighting for Sal. She was carving out her own space in this world fraught with shadows. Every word she articulated felt like adhesive, strengthening her resolve, merging their fates in something unbreakable. Les stepped closer, his arrogance radiating. "Oh, you're making a mistake, sweetheart. When you play with fire, you can get burned. This isn't your game, Les. It's his life," Mia replied, feeling a thrill of empowerment envelope her. But even as the words left her lips, a pang of fear reminded her of the greater ramifications. Would this incite Les to lash out? Sal's eyes, filled with a mixture of gratitude and concern, anchored her resolve. She saw in him a reflection of her own struggles, a man who had faced demons and was desperately trying to rise above them. Would he be willing to confront his past more aggressively if she stood her ground? "Maybe I'm tired of being owned by fear," Sal spoke, shaking off his fragility as he pulled himself up to a sitting position. "And maybe I'm ready to fight for something real. For once." Mia's heart raced at his declaration, the gravity of those words settling around her like weighty armor. Together, they were becoming a formidable force against the darkness that threatened to consume them. Les's eyes flickered with irritation, and that glimmer of uncertainty only fueled Mia's burgeoning conviction. "Don't think this is over," Les spat before retreating. But the promise of confrontation lingered in the air like a storm cloud. As the door closed behind him, the room felt charged, crackling with unspoken tension. "What now?" Sal asked, his voice softer, yet edged with newfound determination. Mia shut her eyes for a moment, contemplating the implications of her choices. The path in front of her sharpened into focus. Their journey together was far from finished. They needed to be vigilant and proactive. "We find out everything we can about Les, and whatever power he thinks he holds over either of us. We're going to expose him and reshape the narrative," she declared, invigorated by the possibilities that lay ahead. With each step into that murky territory, she could feel her heart beat stronger, brimming with purpose and intent. Yet as they stood on the precipice of a tangible battle, another unsettling thought flickered through her mind. What if exposing the truth meant unveiling darker secrets than they anticipated? A chill ran down Mia's spine, suddenly acutely aware of the shadows still lurking. The quest for clarity had just opened a new chapter of risks and revelations. Could they truly unearth the darkness that intertwined their lives without losing themselves in the process? Mia's determination echoed in the stillness of the room, but it was not just for the sake of fighting Les. It resonated with an inner call she hadn't fully recognized until this moment. She had spent so much energy trying to survive the fraying edges of her own life, always carrying the burden of others' expectations, especially in her profession. But standing up to Les shifted something deep within her. "Are you really ready for this?" Sal asked, his voice a soft anchor, but it also rang with the challenge of the unknown. Mia hesitated, the weight of his question creasing her brow. What did being ready mean? She was trying to unearth layers of deception while grappling with her own uncertainties. "We have to start somewhere, and I refuse to let fear dictate our choices." She moved to the small desk, her fingers tracing the edges of Sal's medical files, crumpled and disorganized. Each paper was a remnant of battles fought, diagnostics written in sterile ink, redacted chronicles of his life. The daunting thought struck her. If she did this right, maybe these papers could hold the key to unraveling Les's control, or at least securing Sal's fragile safety. "Let's focus on connecting with anyone who might have information on Les," she proposed, a plan forming in her mind. "Research past cases. Ask colleagues for background. He must have a trail somewhere." Sal's eyes sparkled with a renewed sense of hope, bolstered by her determination. "I can help with that. I've been studying his patterns, his associates. Everything I could gather before I let fear win." The shame in his voice was a familiar specter that Mia recognized. She too had felt the stifling weight of confining fear. "From now on, we face it together. If we dig deep, there might be something we can use to put an end to his grasp." As they began to sift through the notes, each detail drew them into a collective investigation. The process felt liberating, igniting an unexpected thrill to uncover the hidden elements of Les's power. But with every revelation about Les, questions unraveled like taut strings. What did he really want? And how entwined were his motives with their pasts? Searching deeper into the dark underbelly of Sal's records, Mia uncovered something astonishing linked to Les's earlier dealings. A financial report relating to an unsolved case that might have more connections toward organized crime than anyone realized. "Look at this," she said, barely able to contain her skepticism. If Les has ties to these incidents, exposing this could put him in a corner. But with that realization, an uncomfortable thought loomed larger. This was not a simple game of shadows. Every detail uncovered would peel back layers, revealing secrets tied in ways they might not anticipate. Was she playing with fire, or seeking to extinguish it? Sal's brow furrowed, and the determination in his voice steadied her. "We have to know who's in our corner, and who might stab us in the back. If we're going to expose Les, we need to build alliances." While the prospect sounded daunting, the thought of allies ignited an emboldened sense of purpose within Mia. She had always been the solitary nurse, bearing the weight of others' pain without reaching out for her own support network. It was time to change that. "Let's reach out to Marcus," she said, recalling a fellow nurse known for his connections and street-savvy instincts. "He might have leads about Les or even know people who can help us." As they plotted their next move, Mia realized how much she had transformed in a matter of hours, from a passive participant in her own life to an active player taking bold steps into uncharted territories. But as the evening light began to fade through the blinds, reality seeped back in. The darkness Les and his associates represented could easily morph and shift, revealing layers of complexity and danger they hadn't yet faced. Could Mia maintain this newfound strength and clarity when confronted with the inevitable horror of Les's wrath? With every plan forged, a part of her knew the fight ahead would test not just their resolve, but the very foundation of their identities. Was she equipped to handle the fallout that came from inciting a storm? Little did she know, the confrontation with Les was not their only impending battle. Unseen forces were beginning to take notice, and they would unveil their own dark agendas soon enough. As dawn approached, a heavy sense of foreboding hung thick in the air. The moment was drawing nearer, when all of Mia's choices might converge in a single, life-altering confrontation. Mia sat on the edge of Sal's office chair, the wooden surface pressing uncomfortably against her legs. The morning light struggled to penetrate the fog of uncertainty in her mind. Curious about Marcus's network and its potential impact on their mission, she felt a mix of exhilaration and worry swell within her. Reaching out would require more of her than mere words. It would demand vulnerability she had not yet embraced. "Are you sure about this?" Sal's voice broke through her thoughts, a gentle reminder that their next steps could change everything. "More than ever," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But we have to be smart. If we do this right, we'll have more than leads. We'll have backup." With a few taps on her phone, Mia sent a text to Marcus, one that felt clumsy and heavy with implications. She feared what might come from it, the exposure of their plans, unintended consequences, or perhaps an unwanted request for help. But in that moment, the price of progress seemed worth the risk. As she awaited an answer, her mind sprang into a flurry of possibilities. This collaboration might not only bring a much-needed ally, but also test her own limits. Could they truly untangle Les's web before it ensnared them? Mia stood abruptly, the need for movement coursing actively through her. She began pacing the room, flicking through Sal's files with renewed urgency, absorbing data that had once seemed like an insurmountable pile of confusion. She didn't just want to gather evidence. She wanted to understand it in its entirety, to find the heartbeat within the chaos. Hours melted away, and the more she dug, the more she unearthed connections between Les and a shadowy network of associates. The deeper she delved, the more she could sense the complexity of their predicament tightening around her thoughts, urging her to confront not only external threats, but her own spiraling fears. The reality struck her. The fight wasn't just against Les, but an internal battle between her past compliance and an evolving identity rooted in agency and power. "Look at this." She heard Sal's voice echo behind her, a hopeful tremor underlying the revelations they had discovered. The adrenaline coursing through her veins dulled the persistent echo of doubt as she considered the implications of their findings. "This transaction aligns with missing persons reports. The implications are massive." "Makes sense," she replied, not fully comprehending the weight of what lay before her. "If his dealings are linked to organized crime, we may not only confront him, but a whole system supporting his corruption." As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus, the simplicity of his response stark amid the gathering storm. "What did he say?" Sal asked, curious yet bracing for the consequences of their inquiries. Mia hesitated, her heart racing. Maybe it was the panic of the unknown, but with a sharp intake of breath, she opened the message. "Let's meet. I know someone who might have intel on Les." "Where?" "Nowhere close to here," she read aloud, feeling the shadow of their imminent confrontation looming closer. Mia locked eyes with Sal, both aware that this was a critical pivot point. They had assumed the risk, but now they had to decide how far they were willing to go for the truth. Would they expose the malignant growth of Les's machinations, or was it time to retreat and reassess their involvement? "Do you think we should?" "It feels like we're wading directly into danger." "Danger is precisely why we can't turn back," Mia shot back, the voice of determination overcoming the internal fear gnawing at her resolve. "We have to push forward. It's now or never." In that moment, a sliver of clarity broke through the haze of doubt. She might be afraid, but the knowledge she gathered, the alliances she sought, that was her power. The moment she solidified her determination, a realization dawned on her. She was not just part of this fight, but was meant to lead it. As they made plans to meet Marcus, a gradual certainty settled within her. Each step forged a new version of herself, one that could navigate this treacherous landscape not only as a caretaker, but also as a warrior, an advocate willing to confront the darkest places of her past. Yet the gnawing foreboding resurfaced, reminding her of the unseen adversaries who had begun to take notice of their activities. What other secrets awaited discovery? And was her newfound strength enough to weather the storms raging ahead? The possibility of confrontation loomed, with palpable tension stretching in the air around them. With every decision made to confront, to expose, the stakes rose sharply. The path that lay before her would determine the very essence of who she would become, and the world she would navigating thereafter. The time had come, not just to uncover the truth, but to confront her very understanding of her place within this fragile reality. What awaited them at the crux of this impending revelation? Mia didn't have to wait long for her heart to race again. Moments after she and Sal established a plan to meet Marcus, a rush of mixed emotions swept over her. Determination still coursed through her veins, but it collided with the gnawing anxiety of entering a dark underworld fraught with danger. With hardly a moment to breathe, she stood at the precipice of a decision that could open doors or seal her fate. "Are you ready?" Sal's voice was steadier than hers, but she could see the uncertainty in his eyes. He had always been a wall of strength, but the vulnerability of their circumstances seeped through the cracks. Mia nodded, pulling her thoughts together. "I am. But I need to remember that this isn't just about gathering intel. It's about our survival." With every step toward the undisclosed meeting place, her mind churned with strategies for engagement. She had often played it safe, navigating through protocols, assisting others in their healing journeys. But today she was no longer just a caretaker. She needed to adapt her approach in the crucible of confrontation. Bravery was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. As they arrived at a dimly lit diner on the edge of town, anxiety settled like a thick fog. The flickering fluorescent lights felt disorienting, casting shadows that seemed to echo the secretive nature of their mission. She wiped her sweaty palms on her jeans and scanned the booth where Marcus waited, his lean figure hunched over a coffee cup, deep in thought. "Be smart," Sal whispered. "Let's get what we need and get out." Mia agreed, but felt a familiar pull to dig deeper. "You know how these things work, Sal. Sometimes the truth reveals itself in layers, especially among people like us." Just as she began to focus on Marcus, he lifted his gaze, a mix of intensity and wariness wrinkling his brow. "You're here. That's good." His voice was low, urgent. "We don't have much time." "Then let's get to it," Mia replied, instinctively shifting into a confident posture. "What do you have for us?" He hesitated, clearly weighing his words. "I can point you to a source with dangerous intel on Les, but heed my warning. This is a maze filled with thorns. You will need more than just courage. You'll need cunning and discretion. There are eyes everywhere." Mia absorbed his warning, but it only fueled her resolve. "We can handle ourselves. Tell us what we need to know." As she listened, each detail sharpened her focus on the dark connections tightening around Les. The network he operated within wasn't just corrupt. It was intricately linked to societal despair, feeding off those who suffered. The weight of what lay ahead was clear, and despite her growing anxiety, she felt a thrilling sense of purpose rising within her. When Marcus finished his briefing, he leaned back, scrutinizing her. "I can see it in your eyes. You're not just another participant. You want to lead this. But know this. Taking that step only deepens the stakes. If you pursue this path, your life will never be the same again." Mia held her breath, feeling the gravity of his words. There was no turning back now. "I'm ready for whatever comes next, but I need to know, the moment I push, how do I protect those I care about?" "That's the real question," he replied, his gaze piercing through her. "Are you prepared to fight for them if it comes to that?" Dread pooled in her stomach, but she answered with conviction. "I will do what I must." Emerging from the conversation, Mia felt transformed. Distrust was wrapped around her like a shell, but courage fought to crack it open. There would be no returning to the shadows of her past. The layers would continue to unfold, revealing truths until, inevitably, the heart of the matter was exposed. As she and Sal left the diner, the weight of the world felt heavier than before. Yet there was a newfound clarity in Mia's determination. Would the alliance deepen to unearth a profound truth? Or would her ambition incite unforeseen peril? With her next steps feeling precarious, she couldn't shake the urgent need for tangible action. The ambiguity of the future haunted her thoughts, urging her to grapple with difficult questions. How far would she go to protect those she loved? And what would it ultimately cost her? The weight of impending revelations lingered as they stepped back into the uncertainty of the night. Yet, one question echoed in her mind, relentless and resolute. What was she willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth? With the cold air enveloping her, Mia felt the weight of her decision pressing against her chest like a tangible force. Each step away from the diner was laced with urgency. Sal walked beside her, visibly restless. She could sense his anxiety matching her own. They had come too far to turn back now, yet the unknown loomed ahead, a landscape of danger and deceit. "Where do we start?" Sal asked, glancing her way, his tone a fragile mixture of hope and doubt. Mia hesitated, processing Marcus's warnings. "We need to find that source of intel. We can't just wait for it to come to us." With her heart pounding in sync with her renewed purpose, she recalled every detail she could about Marcus's cryptic mention of a source. There were rumors stitched throughout the underbelly of the city, but she needed a plan to navigate this world while keeping their intentions hidden. As they climbed into the car, Sal's nervous energy radiated, punctuating the silence. "Mia, we're stepping into something big. I mean, what if Les finds out what we're up to?" The mere mention of Les sent a shiver down her spine. He wasn't just an adversary. He was a ghost overshadowing everyone who dared to tread in his territory. That's why we play our cards right. We can't let fear stop us. The engine roared to life, and as they drove deeper into the night, Mia's mind raced. A surge of defiance coursed through her. This was more than about gathering information. This was about ownership over her life and the lives of those she loved. Each iteration of Marcus's warning echoed in her mind like an incantation, and she realized that this was the moment to discover hidden strengths. What if she was more capable than she ever imagined? In her previous life, she had been limited by the constraints of her role as a nurse. Now, it felt like a veil had lifted. She could be the instigator of change. The thought exhilarated and terrified her simultaneously. She needed knowledge, not just about her adversary, but about the depths of her own resolve. "I want you to promise me something, Sal," she said, her tone determined. "No matter what we discover, we stick to the plan. We don't act impulsively." He met her gaze, a flicker of responsibility lighting up his eyes. "I promise. But Mia, what if we uncover something we're not ready for?" Truth was, she had already tasted the bittersweet sting of risk. "Then we adapt. We've got to trust our instincts." The city lights flickered past as they moved toward the seedier parts of town. A part of her wanted a reason to hesitate, to cling to the life she had built where safety reigned. Yet another part was fiercely alive, hungry for action, knowledge, a stake in this hidden war. They pulled up to a rundown bar that looked more like a facade than an establishment. It pulsated with a dark energy. Heavy music and murmured conversation beckoned them. "This is it," Mia stated, her gut telling her they were about to take a step deeper into the abyss. Sal shot her a glance, a mix of admiration and apprehension. "All right then, lead the way." Inside, the air felt charged, as if secrets flowed through the shadows. Mia adjusted her posture, channeling what she had learned from Marcus, caution wrapped in confidence. They pried their way through the sea of intoxicated patrons, searching for a figure Marcus had hinted at. As they reached the back, a gruff voice broke through the noise. "What do you want?" Mia met the man's steely gaze, her heart throttling against her ribcage. "We need information about Les," she said, her voice steady despite the roiling uncertainty within her. "Info comes at a price," he replied, eyeing them both thoughtfully. She felt the pivotal moment stretch and crackle around them, and as she weighed her next words, her mind surged with possibilities. This was not just about gaining information. It was a pivotal point in her journey. Would she stand firm in her conviction or falter when faced with direct consequences? "I'm willing to pay," she said, summoning every ounce of courage she had. What price would she accept, and could she truly afford the risk accompanying this new path? As the man leaned forward, ready to deal, the urgency of her choices darkened the room. Mia's heart raced, caught between empowerment and peril. The stakes had been raised, and the next words would either catapult her into the depths of this dangerous game or seal her fate more tightly than she had ever imagined. What had she stirred up, and how would she navigate the dangerous waters she had chosen to tread? Mia stood poised at the nexus of her transformation. The risks of the past months culminated in this critical moment. The confrontation with the undercurrent of truth that had entwined her life with that of Sal Marino and the sinister figure of Les. The scent of impending revelations hung heavy in the air as she gleaned insights from the gruff figure across the dimly lit table. "Information about Les doesn't come cheap," he reiterated, his gaze appraising. Mia squared her shoulders. This was not merely about a transaction. It was about seizing her power in a world that had often rendered her a victim of circumstance. "What do you want?" she inquired, channeling the resolve that surged within her. The man leaned back, a calculating smirk on his lips. "A favor. It's simple. Just a little errand for me. Something that will keep our mutual interests safe." Mia's heart thudded as the shadows of her life flickered in her mind. Every action she took now rippled into the future. There was no going back. She could feel the weight of that truth anchoring her feet to the ground, steadying her as she faced this gauntlet of consequences. "What's your favor?" she asked, her voice unwavering despite the creeping unease. "You'll have to meet me at the old docks tomorrow night. There's something I need you to retrieve, something that ties directly to Les." Mia exchanged a glance with Sal, who mirrored her apprehension, but also a hint of awe at her burgeoning bravery. This was their chance, a potential turning point, but it came intertwined with shadows deeper than they had anticipated. "Fine, but you better keep your word and deliver what we need," she replied, sealing what felt like an irreversible pact. The man nodded, satisfaction glimmering in his eyes. As they left the dim bar, the weight of their choices settled heavily upon Mia's shoulders. This could expose Les to the world, alter lives irreversibly, and perhaps even cleanse some of the burdens she had carried since her father's demise. She'd begun to craft her narrative, not as a bystander or a victim, but as an architect of her fate. The following day buzzed with tension. As Mia prepared for the imminent confrontation, she felt the echoes of her growth resonate within her. Conversations with Sal had shifted from tentative exchanges to strategic planning. The contours of their alliance had solidified, forging an indomitable commitment to confront the truths tethering them to their pasts. At the docks, the atmosphere shifted palpably. A thrilling cocktail of fear and anticipation brewed in the salty air. They stood against a backdrop of murky waters, the endless expanse reflecting a promise of opportunity and peril. Time stretched, the daylight retreating as shadows stretched long and ominous. When the man arrived, the air crackled with tension. "You came," he said, a hint of disbelief coloring his tone. "I don't back down," Mia replied, a steely determination carving her words. "Now, what's the item?" He rummaged through a duffel bag, revealing a flash drive. "This contains everything. Transactions, names, evidence that links Les to more than just petty crime. It's the key to unraveling him." Mia's heartbeat quickened. With this, they could expose the corruption, unveil the truth, perhaps even reclaim her father's tarnished legacy. This was the crescendo of her journey, a significant moment of personal evolution, liberation from fear, and the reclamation of agency she had been denied for so long. But as she reached for the drive, the laughter echoed in the distance, hollow and menacing. With the flick of a flashlight, Les appeared, flanked by half a dozen of his enforcers, shadows stretching into the night. Mia's heart sank, yet she remained rooted. "You think you can intimidate me?" she challenged, fervor coursing through her. "Darling, you're holding evidence that doesn't belong to you," Les replied, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "I'd recommend letting it go before things get ugly." But ugliness had already marked her life. "This isn't about you anymore. You've held the strings long enough. I've found my voice, and I won't be silenced." A semblance of respect flickered in Les's eyes. He was taken aback at her resolve, but masked it behind a sly grin. "You're feisty. I'll give you that." "Mia, let's go," Sal urged, sensing the escalating danger. But she shook her head, brandishing the flash drive as an emblem of her empowerment. "Not this time." She stepped forward, heart pounding fiercely against the possibility of facing her fears. What transpired next felt like a whirlpool of chaos. The conversation ignited a confrontation, revealing the lurking connections between vulnerability and empowerment. The weight of her actions coalesced into the long-awaited confrontation she had both sought and dreaded. In the moments that followed, decisions crystallized. A tense exchange erupted, words armed with fury and defiance standing between her and Les. As shadows moved, Mia had to navigate the precipice of lawlessness. The fine line between triumph and tragedy blurred in the confrontational dance they found themselves partaking in. "Enough! No more games!" Mia shouted, her courage illuminating the darkness around her. "Then let's settle this once and for all," Les replied. And before she could comprehend, chaos erupted. A cacophony of movement as fists flew and bodies pushed against bodies. In that maelstrom of emotion, a sudden clarity wrapped around Mia like a shield. The fear she once felt began to dissolve, replaced with an unwavering resolve. This was her moment, a testament to all she had learned and the strength she had discovered. As the dust settled and clarity returned, Mia grasped the flash drive tightly with newfound determination. It wasn't just evidence, it was her testament and liberation. When the aftermath revealed itself, she found herself standing beside Sal, their bond forged stronger than ever. The fight had not just been for herself, but for the truth, the grit of her determination against the darkness that had haunted their lives. As the sun rose that following dawn, illuminating the path ahead, Mia stood resolute, an assertion of her power that would reshuffle lives impacted by corruption. She was no longer a mere caregiver. She was a harbinger of truth, a warrior against injustice. In that defining moment, Mia finally embraced the culmination of her journey, recognizing the strength within her. It was time for the world to see it too. If you found Mia's shocking transformation inspiring, don't hesitate. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you never miss another exclusive emotional story. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support transformative tales just like this. Comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Mia's incredible journey and what's next. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. You need to show your support now. Let's amplify these powerful narratives together.